That's one of the best podcasts ever. Ever. Top 5 dead or alive. Welcome to Pod Caviar. I'm your host, Tony, in the Ministry of Silly Talks with Graham in the building, and we are back doing another episode of Pod Caviar, the season finale of season 3.
That's right. And this has been quite a journey this season.
It has been, yeah.
It's been,
we were just talking about the Michael Swango episode, and that was really the breaking point, so to speak, of season 3.
It definitely seemed to me like, you know, it's your podcast. I'll come in here and do 1,000 episodes of the season if you want, but my God, was that bumming me out.
Oh my God, it was. Season 3, we did the AdMax Colorado ADX Supermax prison where they send all the bad guys and all the people who have embarrassed our government in one form or the other.
Does seem to be the connecting thread between all of them is that, like, at some point these people did something that embarrassed law enforcement.
Oh yeah, yeah,
grotesquely, and so they put them in a, well, we described it earlier in the podcast. Yeah. They put them in a very small box.
Oh yeah,
forever.
They definitely do. And today is no different. We are doing Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber. Something that we've talked about many times before. We did an episode on it before in season 2. We were talking about the Trail of Terror.
Yep.
And now we're going to get more in depth into the Unabomber and how we think that this is called the Murray experiment that he went through as a 16-year-old kid at Harvard University, a psychological experiment, how that played into him becoming the Unabomber. So,
yeah. And it's odd to mention that I was excited to talk about the Unabomber in the face of some of the things that came before this. But yeah. And, you know, it's interesting, too, as we're going to get into it, though, that Murray experiment was actually something I didn't know about until you talked about it, because I'd never really looked into it.
Right.
You know, I just assumed the Unabomber was an insane person.
Yeah, and that's what they made it seem like.
Yeah,
you know?
Not that he's not, but they definitely buried the lead on
they did.
What we're going to discuss.
And you know what? And then we're going to discuss why that happened and why the media didn't talk about those experiments and why you have to do some light digging to get to it and understand why it basically everybody just what's called flicking the booger on somebody else. And we used history.com and mentalfloss.com as sources for this. Both stories are essentially the same. Basically, what history.com says is he was a 16-year-old kid. He enrolled in Harvard. Smart kid. So
he was enrolling in Harvard at 16.
Yeah. So it says, before Ted Kaczynski became the infamous Unabomber, he was a gifted 16-year-old student at Harvard University. Kaczynski may have been precocious in his intellect, but he was also impressionably young. And it was at Harvard where Kaczynski would be recruited to take part in a 3-year-long, potentially abusive psychological experiment. This is the beginning of them passing the buck and not understanding and not saying that what he went through at Harvard is a direct cause of what happened.
Right. Well,
in his becoming the Unabomber.
Yeah, and framing it with that potentially harmful or potentially abusive.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're saying like, oh, well, we told him it might not be good.
Yeah.
Like, so you let a 16-year-old sign off on having his brain probed, essentially.
And we're going to get into the 16-year-old, he was part of an experiment, psychological experiment at Harvard, and they describe it as potentially harming. It was a 3-year experiment that was based off of techniques that were used in the Nuremberg trials, which, if you're not familiar with that, were held after World War II, and it was what they did to find the Nazis and tried them and then sentenced them to death and life in imprisonment.
They hung them in mass.
Yeah.
Actually, interestingly about that, a bit of a side note, there's a movie that used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it's there anymore. It's called Pier Point, The Last Hangman, and it's a story about the British hangman. It's a story about his life, and then he was hired after Nuremberg to hang all of these Nazis. Like we're talking about a lot of hangings. And actually he came back home and found himself in a situation where he hung one of his best friends.
Oh, shit.
And he is actually like the catalyst for the reason why they no longer have capital punishment in England.
Damn.
Actually, his story maybe next season just do like a potpourri of interesting people. His story would be one to mention.
Okay. Yeah, we need to make a mark of that.
Yeah.
But see, man, you make that point, and that he was part of the Nuremberg trials, and he was a figure in that, and then how they took care of the Nazis after the fact.
Yeah.
And then all of that, they want to describe these trials that Ted Kaczynski went through as potentially damaging.
Even though they're somehow related to what went on there.
Dude, I'm air quoting so hard, the wind from my fingers might blow the wall out of the studio.
Say, I keep having to turn your mic down because of all the wind blowing past your fingers, air quoting.
It's so crazy. It goes on to say that after investigators discovered in 1996 that the former youthful genius was now a reclusive murderer responsible for a horrific series of bombings that killed 3 people and injured 23, they took an interest in the 3-year experiment that Kaczynski would later describe as the worst experience of his life.
Yeah, let's get into what they did.
Kaczynski entered Harvard in 1958, and 1 year later was tapped by psychologist Henry A. Murray to take part in a study exploring the effects of stress on the human psyche. Popular area of research during the Cold War. The experiment enlisted 22 Harvard students to write a detailed essay in which they summarized their worldview and personal philosophy. Then the harsh aspects of the experiment began. After that, pretty much these 22 Harvard students, they did exactly what they were asked to do, and they thought that they were going to debate their point of view against another student.
Right.
What happened was they were put in a chair. They were put like electrodes. Electrodes. Yeah, they were pointing on their head, and they had bright. They were described as bright and hot lights shine down on them. They were facing a 2-way mirror, and then the person on the other side was not a student, but a psychologist who had already graduated and been in the field,
right? And
they were going and debating with that person. If that doesn't sound crazy enough for you, on top of all of that, they also video recorded their sessions and then played it back to them at the end.
Whoa!
Yes,
and
then after saying all that, it's still potentially damaging to the psyche.
And when did they give them all the acid?
They went and we talked. I was trying to find
and
this
I've seen
before.
That a billion times.
Yeah,
before.
But in these articles, it doesn't say anything about that. But I know for a fact I saw it before because we talked about this before.
Yeah, no, it's come up a billion times. Let me see what I can find.
Let's
on
see
my
if you
end.
can find something. Because
you have to imagine too, though, because the experiment's being described that way without the introduction of psychedelics,
right?
Doesn't seem quite as damaging.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Let's see. It said this History.com article says subjects were incompletely informed about the nature of the experiment and were tricked or coerced into remaining in the experiment, given that the procedure were designed. The procedures were designed to break enemy agents and render them so damaged that they would be operationally useless. It is responsible to expect that they would have the same consequences or vulnerable young people who did not have specialized training to resist interrogation. Basically, they did this experiment. The real purpose of it was to try interrogation methods and to see how they could break a person. This was something that was meant for spies in the Cold War and people that, you know, double agents, the people that we talked about during this season. It wasn't meant for kids. I don't know why I was doing that, sorry. And 16-year-old students, or any student for that matter. I don't give a damn whether they're 16, 18, 19, 20, about to graduate. They were not meant for this type of psychological trauma that they put them through. So the fact that that not even Ted Kaczynski, but the 20-some-odd other people that went through it, I mean, I don't understand. And I'm
researching my dick off here too, for the record.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody else that Lord knows what happened to the other people that went through this experiment. I haven't found anybody else that went through it. Of course, everybody's going to focus on the Unabomber because that's what he became, and he was part of this research. But I mean, it even says that the researcher's reputation has since become tarnished, and I bet it has. If you look at the mental floss, article. It goes on to say a lot of the same things. You know, this is a 3-year experiment. This isn't just a session. This is 3 years of hardcore psychological trauma that he had to endure, and it started when he was 16. So what do you expect is going to happen here? Of course, the Unabomber and Ted Kaczynski, the things that he did were horrific. They were totally bad.
Yeah.
We're never condoning any of these terror acts that we talk about.
No, but the wildest thing about Ted Kaczynski too, though, is that like a lot of the I mean, he said a lot. His manifesto is unbelievably long, and he did say a bunch of crazy shit in there. But a lot of the things he said about his motivations, about like the emergence of of artificial intelligence and the emergence of like the way the government is controlling people, and preventing people from succeeding, and
he was
like
anti-technology,
all
the way.
And then also his understanding that AI was going to eventually come online and that we would all be at its beckoning will.
Oh yeah.
Like he was actually out in front of that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because it's like a lot of guys who have a pretty good idea what's going on. Generally their idea about how to address it is fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what his deal was. And also just quickly, there are no shortages of sources that link Ted Kaczynski to the MK Ultra experiments where they gave people LSD. His Wikipedia page, all of these references are all references to academic sources. Yeah. And
it's just something that we're going to talk about in future seasons, because the next season is going to go. We're going to go back to the roots of Pod Caviar, conspiracies and all that.
Exactly.
And a lot of these quote unquote conspiracies, they actually happen. The conspiracy part is a lot of people like to add certain things to it, and that's when the conspiracy comes to.
And add motives that don't necessarily make sense.
Exactly. You have a base, you have a foundation, and then from there, that is not a conspiracy. That is an actual historical event. The conspiracy comes to when people add on certain things, and then you go from there. So
and in some circumstances, it may have been a conspiracy, and that's what keeps conspiracy theorists alive. Yeah, is like if you consider everything to be a conspiracy, eventually you'll be right.
Right.
Like eventually, Earth's probably not flat, but maybe you're onto something about this, like mainstream media.
Yeah,
you're onto something here.
There's always a sprinkle of truth and everything. The guy Murray, who was the head of this experiment, he, before starting to work with Harvard, he was previously a part of the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. And if you don't know what that is, it was the precursor to the CIA. And when you understand that the CIA is what the CIA is and what they have been doing since the past and what they have been responsible for it, and you completely understand that yeah, they would be interested in something like this.
Yeah, they've had no shortage of interests in anything they could do to figure out how you control someone's mind, how you get information from someone, what are the boundaries of a human's ability to undergo stress under all these different circumstances. It's what made LSD perfect for them.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was to put these people in this state of like... they were always looking for something that would make you suggestible and like your perception of reality malleable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they spent so much time with LSD. But they could never quite nail it down.
They could.
You can't ever. No. That's the sort of the beauty of the molecule is that like once you're under its grasp, like you or someone is, you can't ever quite nail it down. You know, you can't ever quite. But you could definitely stress someone out to the point where they would have a severe psychotic episode or a breakdown or lose their minds. Yeah. Or if you did it enough, despite how maybe you thought they did with it, maybe down the line, they would have some pretty abstract ideas about the government.
And I think Ted Kaczynski fits into this perfectly. I mean, you know, history is history. And the Mental Floss article they asked the question of, does having his morals and values ridiculed and abused push Kaczynski over the edge and eventually make him punish those who didn't believe in his manifesto, including university professors? Or did the brutal psychological study have no effect on Kaczynski at all? Perhaps the future terrorist had social problems long before stepping into Murray's office.
Yeah, okay. That's such bullshit. That's like one of these. That's like these arguments where they're like, "Oh, what would Chris Farley have been as great without cocaine and booze? Imagine how great Chris Farley would have been without it."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People did that with Lawrence Taylor. They're like, look at what a vicious and amazing football player he was. Would he have been that good without the cocaine thing? Like, did that make him better?
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
And the thing on the Lawrence Taylor thing, back then, a vast majority of players in the NFL was on cocaine back then.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's always the deal in sports. It's always like Lance Armstrong getting caught for doping. It's like, okay, so what, they took his medals away and gave them to the other guy on steroids? Right, who he was also Barry Bonds. You're like, okay, well, Barry Bonds was Willie Mays on steroids. You know what I mean? When Barry Bonds played, everyone was on steroids. So it seems to me like it's all leveled out, right? Like, you don't think Hank Aaron ever took, like, greenies, like those little, like, amphetamine things? You don't think he ever, you know, or, like, in the 70s, come on. Or if, like, Hank Aaron, like, had access to steroids, like, do you think Hank Aaron wouldn't have taken steroids?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Hank Aaron's a special case, though, too, because the guy, like, was, like, just played forever.
Yeah, he
and
did
hit a bazillion home runs.
Yeah.
But, like, Barry Bonds still probably the greatest baseball player to ever live. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, steroids or not, everyone was on steroids.
Yeah. And in this case, you got to take the psychological experiment or not. It's like, come on, this kid is 16 and he's in Harvard. Like,
I'm gonna guess he probably wouldn't have became a terrorist without, you know, they're like, maybe he just would have been a terrorist anyway.
Like, no, I don't think he would have. Of course, he would have had some growing pains being 16 and being at Harvard. Who wouldn't have? That's normal shit. I mean, any kid that has went through school and has even skipped a grade, there's a big jump.
Oh, yeah.
Because
you always see social awkward behavior in people who are, you know, socially pushed up the ladder too soon. And they should be. Like, you want to get them up there. But unfortunately, Harvard didn't see that, like, maybe they should, like, protect that kid.
Yeah.
They're like,
but no, they did no protection on him at all.
Like, oh, he's got a really exceptional mind.
Right.
Let's put a bunch of acid.
Yeah. And I think that's what happened. They were like, oh, he's 16 and he's at Harvard. No, he definitely needs to be part of this experiment. Yeah. And I would even go, there's no proof of this, but I would even go as far as saying that.
Oh, I'm ready to speculate, baby.
Yeah, let's speculate and say that maybe there was somebody who got in his ear and was like, you would really be good at this.
Of course.
And they were hired by the OSS themselves. Murray himself had told somebody to tell Kaczynski to be a part of that just because of his brain and his knowledge and his psyche.
Yeah,
at
I mean,
the time.
He's been exceptional for that long.
Yeah,
you know, and people have constantly been like, "You're pretty exceptional," and then there he is. He's 16.
Yeah,
and he's going to Harvard.
Right.
You know, like, which would have been strange enough for him.
Exactly.
As a 16-year-old at Harvard, but then they're like, here's a bunch of acid and psychological abuse.
Yeah.
And then
for 3 years.
And then the idea that we're supposed to accept that, like, well, maybe he would have done all that crazy shit anyway.
No, I don't think. No, there's no fucking way. way. No, he would have went on to be a great scientist and, you know, had done great things. Maybe he would have been socially awkward, but what person in that situation wouldn't be socially awkward? What engineer do you know? I work with engineers all the time. 95% of them are socially awkward as shit.
Yeah, because they're so incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
Dude, there was one. What Ted Kaczynski could have accomplished, though. That's the point, is that without the drugs, there's no, I don't think there's any way he ever goes down that road.
No.
Why would he ever have any of these, like, super strong opinions about the government and its effect on society had he not been essentially, like, mentally, you know, reconstructed by the government?
I think that maybe he would have had those thoughts, but it would have been more of, I don't like that.
Yeah,
but I accept it. You know, I don't do that. I don't use all that technology. But
well, yeah, because
it is what it is.
Well, because without that, he wouldn't have been living in the cabin in the woods, building bombs.
Yeah,
he would have lived in a nice house. Yeah. With like a sweet French hooker for
and he
a
wouldn't
wife.
have been any different than somebody that we know that still has a flip phone that doesn't have the text screen phone or anything. I mean, come on, you can't use these potentially a what if, you know, but is this what pushed them over there? Yes.
There's undoubtedly.
Yes, I will go on record as saying it that yes, that is what did it. It's no different than having a 16-year-old grow up in a single-parent household and their parent is on crack. That's going to psychologically affect them. Yep. The only difference is there's no Harvard. You know, there's no two-way mirror.
Yeah, it's not a controlled, horrifying restructuring of the synapses of your brain. No, there's plenty of people, myself included, who used drugs and alcohol at a young age when my brain was still forming, and I'm feeling the effects now. Yeah. Imagine if you took a 16-year-old genius and pumped his head full of science and then like put him in these weird psychological environments with the two-way mirrors and bright lights for 3
years, bro. 3 years. This wasn't one session. This was 3 years of him getting his brain fried.
Yeah.
It's going to amplify everything.
Nah, there's no two ways about
everything.
It.
And there was
God knows what sort of dosages they were given. It's 1959.
Right.
What do they know about?
No, well,
LSD
you know, there was that other case where they gave one guy, they kept giving him acid more and more, and they told him to draw the pictures. Have you ever heard of that? And they kept getting crazier and crazier. There was no limitation on the dosage back then. They just wanted to see what was going to happen. Yeah. And it's no different than what they did to Ted Kaczynski. But we got our answer. What happened was he went insane and he started bombing people.
Yeah. Actually, though, I think the drawing thing was they gave him a massive dose and then they had him draw the same picture
every hour. Yeah, that's what it was.
It was like 8 hours, but it was a big dose. Yeah, actually, I have a notebook in here that me and Bree did where I drew Captain Picard every hour for like 12 hours. It's crazy, right? Yeah. It's absurd.
Yeah. Do you think that now put yourself in your shoes as a 16-year-old? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't try psychedelics until I was 30 years old.
Right.
I was 30 years old. I made a very concerted, educated decision, and I tried psychedelics when I was like in company with like people I was very comfortable with. Yeah. And it was still,
because everybody says that. Everybody, every time I've ever heard that.
A lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was still a lot to deal with. Could not imagine you're a 16-year-old genius.
Right. Now you take him and you strap him down, put damn pads on his, to read his brain waves, put him in front of a damn two-way mirror, and then have bright lights on him, and then somebody that you just hear a voice, and they're like, "This is what I heard you saying. That this is stupid. Explain this." You're like, how do you get around that, dude?
They're
16,
surveilling you and bringing up things from your personal life.
At 16, I was worried about getting my license and getting pussy. That was it.
And there's no really.
What else are you gonna do at 16?
You're a genius. What you're gonna do is go to Harvard and be turned into the government's monster.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, long story long. The deal with Ted Kaczynski is he's a monster the government created. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful way to end this season of your podcast.
Yeah.
Because. He's the ultimate, like, I embarrassed law enforcement
and
you made me.
Dude, he was so smart that he took strands out of the wires that he used in his bombs so that they couldn't be traced. He's an acid coded the components of his bombs so that they couldn't get his fingerprints, or he filed them off. He was very meticulous in everything that he did. And for a long time, the government didn't have any leads. They didn't have anything. The only thing that they saw was like sometimes there would be leaves in a package. There was one bomb that he sent that didn't detonate, and that was all they had.
That was
if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't have anything. He would still be out there doing that.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid seeing the picture, like the exploded pictures in the New York or in US News or on the newspaper, that the like exploded views of how the packages worked. Yeah. And that was the only way they knew that was because one of them didn't blow up.
He did it so well that he would take a package and then like he would send it to somebody but use insufficient postage. And the return address was his true target.
Yeah.
That's letting the post office do the work for you. You can't trace that. You might be able to do it now, but then back then, come on. What did we say in the beginning? You're in there because you embarrassed the shit out of the government. Yeah. The government created Ted Kaczynski, and then he embarrassed them, and then this is their way of getting it. That was crazy,
that
right?
He sent packages with insufficient funds to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the return address was the target.
Yep.
That is bonkers town.
Yeah.
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 You did that.
Oh, yeah.
They did that. Like, that's their fault. Yeah. No, but because I knew about the like removing strands from wires and acid washing things, and it's like that's because he knew he was like, well, there's like only so many places make it this way or make it this way to make sure that they didn't know which lot it came from.
Oh yeah.
No, undoubtedly, that bomb that didn't explode was the only way they understood how
that was it.
How the mechanism even worked, because it was all just paper and like tin foil and small wires.
Yeah.
And it was circuits.
And it was like a perimeter barometer that he put on a plane that when it got to cruising altitude, then the barometric pressure would drop, and then that was the trigger.
Oof. Good thing he didn't get one of those off.
I think he did. It didn't crash the plane, but I think
he did blow up.
Well, I don't know. We can Google that.
Up real quick.
Yeah, I knew that was one of his methods of making the bomb, but I don't know whether it went off or not. Listen, I know. Look, Pod Caviar. We are not afraid to dive into these rabbit holes. We love conspiracies. We love calling conspiracies bullshit. We love calling out the government when it's wrong.
Oh, yeah, it says here, on a flight from Chicago to D.C., it exploded but only caused a small fire. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
They made a barometric pressure bomb?
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah. But look, when we're right, we're right. And when we do our research and when we prove something and when we connect the dots, it is what it is.
Sometimes we're in here just spitballing, though, and speculating.
Yeah.
Brilliant theories come up.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we're not right. We're deconstructing things in a different angle.
Yeah.
Than most people do.
I will say this.
Two people sitting in a room together, it makes podcasting so much better.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But, dude, this and the when we did Diet Love Pass and we talked about that and we came to that conclusion, I mean, we're not out here look, sometimes we come in here, we have fun, we do bullshit, but when we fucking put our minds together and we say, fuck it, this is what we're talking about, and this is it. This is what we do.
Diet Love Pass, genuinely, not even, I mean, it was a very funny episode too, though, for people that listened to it, because it was hysterical. But if you follow us around and around the merry-go-round, I think we did pretty much solve it.
We did. Yeah, no, we solved that. We totally solved that shit, man. How much time do we have now?
We are at 28 minutes.
Damn.
You've pretty much done a podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
You don't have to go 45 minutes, I think.
No. We talked about this.
You got anything else fun you want to talk about?
We can talk about next season. We got some conspiracies coming up. My son Malik, he put in a request that we do lizard people.
Yes. I'm down with lizard people because lizard people combines with the hollow moon.
Okay.
You know about the hollow moon?
Yeah, I've heard about hollow moon,
lizard
but I need
people
to dive
and
into
hollow
that.
moon are interconnected.
Okay. All right.
I like
we're gonna
that.
We're gonna
Absolutely.
do. I'll probably have them bring him at least. I don't know whether his brother's gonna want to come, but I want him to be in here.
Yeah. Does he have some strong opinions on lizard people?
I'll go talk to him about it. He just brought it up. He's been doing research about it.
Interesting. You don't want to squelch someone's ability to do research,
right?
But you also want to be like, and now vet your source.
Yeah, exactly.
Lizard,
and that's what I was telling him.
Lizard people is a favorite of mine. Lizard people, I also think we should discuss and it may be an episode we do as a dual episode, because if we do all the research, I may want to just do it as one episode.
Okay.
But like, there's some stuff I have some interesting things I personally dug out of the declassified John F. Kennedy documents.
Okay.
When they declassified all that information.
I remember that, yeah.
It's not necessarily conspiracy stuff, but it more points towards how strange the deal is with Martin Luther King.
Okay.
And actually, that's something people lost sight of. Like, it was weird too, because there's all these like JFK conspiracists, and none of them were really actually willing to sit down and scan through any of those documents.
No.
And I will admit that a lot of them were still like pretty heavily redacted.
Yeah.
But just what I got was I skipped to the end and worked my way that way.
Yeah,
and when you see the amount of surveillance Martin Luther King was under, and like you know, if you look at the guy who shot Martin Luther, or was convicted for shooting Martin Luther, James Earl Ray.
Yeah.
If you look at that guy's story, none of that makes any sense.
Of course not.
I mean, even the King family has exonerated him for response. They don't think he did it either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Martin Luther King's JFK, there's giant holes in that story.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like, to the point where when I hear skeptics talk who are like, well, the story they told us makes sense, I'm like, look, dude, I'm not a conspiracy guy. Like, and I don't even necessarily know that it is a giant conspiracy, but if this is what they're giving us, how am I supposed to believe it's not?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It doesn't all add up.
No, it doesn't.
But if you look at Martin Luther King's assassination, not surprisingly, it's even way more fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, the man was shot going out on a balcony to look at a car that Jesse Jackson bought.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then, see, that was all, like, why do you need him to come out to the balcony to do that? And it's so many,
specifically
it's so much,
at that time.
Yeah, it's
and
so
where'd
much
you buy
shit,
that car?
Yeah, it's so much to peel back. Like, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I even heard Mike Baker was on. He's a CIA guy. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Joe Rogan was kind of trying to push him about JFK, and even he was like, you know, yeah, there's some inconsistencies in that story, but he's like, the one as when I worked for the agency that bothered me the most was MLK, and he was saying, it was like, you look at James Earl Ray, and he was, there's even parts where he's like, I don't want to necessarily get into it, but it's like, but he's like, look, you have this guy, he's like a drunk and a drug addict and a broke dude, and then he falls off the face of the earth for months and comes back as like this clean-cut normal dude who lives this life up to the part where he murders allegedly murders Martin Luther King. Right. And I've always known about the Jesse Jackson thing. Jesse Jackson is all, I mean, I think I just think as people, if you see Jesse Jackson, kind of rubs you the wrong way.
Yeah, he always has.
I think he's doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, he always has, and there's a lot that needs to be said to that story, and we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, but so fantastic conspiracy stuff coming up next season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, season 4 is going to be amazing.
But yeah, from the real to the fucking lizard people.
Yeah, we're going to do
Hollow
all
Moon.
that shit.
I love that stuff. Space is fake.
We get to the roots of Pod Caviar.
Space is fake came up since you started this podcast.
Space is fake?
Yeah, you know.
Oh my god!
You didn't know that space is
No,
fake?
I gotta.
Yes, I'm looking forward to next season.
Space is fake? No. Okay. Yeah, we're going to go dive into that. But thank you, everybody that has been listening and been a fan since episode 1. Season 3 is a wrap. We did the AdMax Colorado. We talked about a lot of people. We talked about double agents. We talked about mafia people. We talked about fucking crazy serial killers, Michael Swango.
Yep.
We talked about the Unabomber. Yeah, we talked about the GDs. Man, I mean, this was a great season. It was a great season.
And we covered a lot of bases.
And we're just going to get better from here.
I was going to say it's only going to get better, but I figured you might mention that.
Man, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the 1 Gram Army podcast. Do it. If you hear me on 1 Gram Army, you hear Graham on Pod Caviar. I mean, this is just we're doing so many great things right now, but this is really just the beginning because we're going to springboard from here and then
go
it
from so many angles.
Be sure to check out shirtcaviar.com. That is the shirt. Look, it says Shirt Caviar. The focus is on the shirts. I design the shirts. I sell them. We're both wearing Shirt Caviar right now. You can't see it, but they're amazing.
Tune in to the 1 Gram Army podcast to see Shirt Caviar t-shirts.
Yes. Yeah. There is follow shirt_caviar on Instagram. That has all the promotions for all the shirts, including the 1 Gram Army shirt, including the Pod Caviar shirt. It is amazing. You can buy straight from Instagram, or you can go to shirtcaviar.com. We accept Apple Pay, Google Pay, I guess is what it's called. All major credit cards, PayPal, all that stuff. Be sure to check out Game Caviar either on YouTube, or go to twix.com/nothavingit. We're going to put all this into the description. All of this is interconnected. This is the big idea, is what I wanted to see when I started all of this, is that I wanted to see cross promotion and interconnectivity, so that we cover all the bases. We do a good job of covering all the bases.
The net is set.
Yeah,
and it's the space and the holes in the net are only going to get tighter and tighter. And tighter
and there's going to be plenty of. We always got the Time's Up Dolphin shirt.
Yep.
We have plenty of shirts that come that will be designed and thought of on the show, and that will be on sale on Shirt Caviar. There are plenty of games that will be played. Did you see my text about the big ass bear on Days Gone?
Yes. I can't imagine that game has a giant bear in it too. Hordes of zombies.
I swear
and a giant
to God,
bear.
I was like, what is this? And the mission was find this girl that we've seen. She's hiding out. Bring her back to the camp. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. Fought some zombies. They're like, follow me back to my bike. I go back to the bike, and this big bear just shows up.
No.
This was all streamed on Twix, twix.com/nothavingit.
I've
checked
that out. Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
It's amazing.
Now that you mentioned T-shirts inspired by the podcast, I actually just thought of a line of shirts that say that's an old penitentiary trick.
Oh, yeah.
Where it could be like that guy's face, like kind of like distorted, and then also like a picture of that dude he was banging who was old, who had like a band, because that's an old penitentiary comma trick. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A whole line of old penitentiary tricks.
Oh, yeah. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. Yeah.
I leave it in your capable hands. You can find the picture of the guy.
We lean on that shit so much because it's so funny, and it fits so well into our podcast.
Well, and it's... Oh, didn't play.
Oh, shit, no.
I had turned things down to try to give
this old penitentiary trick.
There it is.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that the drop didn't drop.
If you haven't, listen to the Michael Swango episode, and then that would be the greatest use.
That guy.
That would be the greatest use of the old penitentiary trick sound bite.
It was the best drop.
Oh my God, it was
in the history of that bite.
It just hit it.
It nailed like bam.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So. Before we wrap it up, you got any highlights of the season that you liked that stuck out?
Yeah. Well, definitely. It was the interesting thing overall about the season was that I was really excited to do it because I thought it would be kind of cool to like kind of dive into these guys because we really breezed through the Trail of Terror thing. None of that really bothered me.
Right.
I mean, it's all obviously disturbing, but it's terror. It's something we're pretty familiar with.
That's true.
I think what I got the most out of, though, which is the thing I liked the least, was digging into who these people were and some of the things they were responsible for. Yeah. Michael Swango being the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, my God, that dude.
I would never say this in my life, but I was, like, happy to talk about Ted Kaczynski today.
Right.
Because it makes it...
Swango was so bad that Ted Kaczynski was the better alternative.
Like. He leaves a less shit... Well, because it's like a whodunit, but it leaves a less terrible taste in your mouth.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you kind of understand, and then there's like the man is kind of responsible, so it's easier to deflect it. But it's like Michael Swango was just some dude running around that nobody was like, "Hey, stop this guy!" I don't talk about him. But
and even when they reported him, it's like, "You guys are full of shit."
Yeah,
right? He's a doctor. Why would he do that? And then turns around. Yes, he was definitely doing that.
Yeah, and but those moments were what I enjoyed most about this season of Pod Caviar. Because I had a lot of them this season.
Oh yeah. I like the whole just going through that list, man. We had that lawyer that was that was doing life, but he like defended the rappers and all that shit. Man, we had the Mexican mafia that wasn't founded in Mexico, but it's still the Mexican mafia.
It was essentially a domestic terrorist organization. Yeah, it's wild.
We did the Gangster Disciples. We did
that Dead Drop guy, the Russian double agent guy.
Yeah, that
was
fucking
a shocker.
what's his name? Michael fucking damn, what is his name? Damn.
Yeah,
what was it? My son just listened to it the other day and he asked me, was he dead? And I was like, nah, he's not dead. Trust me, he's still alive with his stupid fucking smile. Let's see. Robert Hansen. That's what his name is. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Robert Hansen. We did the Olympic bomber. That whole story was crazy too. Damn, what's this? DEA
agent was a secret double agent for cartel. Chicago DEA agent Fernando Gomez was denied.
You know what? Chicago is really connected to this season, hardcore. Like,
well, you know what I did was I typed in Chicago double agent because I knew that guy had connections to Chicago. Yeah, no, this is from this year.
Oh shit. I think that he's not, and I can bet money on this. He's not the only one that's a double agent.
This Detective Gomez guy is an Evanston city detective.
Oh,
I know this. I've seen this guy. I could pick this guy out of a lineup.
Oh shit!
Wow, since 2006, yeah.
What the fuck?
Was arrested last month and charged with helping the Puerto Rican drug gang starting in 2006 when he was a detective with the city of Evanston. So he was either a detective or an officer back when I knew all of the detectives and officers in the Evanston Police Department. That is bonkers.
What the fuck?
And then in 2011, he joined the Chicago arm of the DEA. That's nuts.
What?
That's nuts.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, this guy probably provided drugs and advice to people I know. Mm-hmm. That's insane. Wow. That was a strange find at the end of this podcast.
It was, yeah.
Maybe we'll have to dig into that some more in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But that was cool, right? The last few minutes. Some wild-ass shit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, if you Google Chicago double agent, you will find that story from January 2017. You can take a look at it.
And 443-747-1417 is the number to get in touch with Pod Caviar. And I will check it periodically. If you have suggestions to fucking voicemails, let me know. We have some weird voicemails, too, that came through in the past for Pod Caviar. Everything about this podcast I love because it's so crazy. Yeah, it's crazy and it's unpredictable, and I love it. And I thank every one of my subscribers and my supporters, not just for Pod Caviar, but just for the Caviar Empire in general, including the 1 Gram Army.
That's right.
We're going to be back. I don't even think, man, I don't even want to take a break.
That's
Season 4 will probably start next week. We're going to start with Lizard People, and it's going to be amazing. But that is Graham. I am Tony. This has been Season 3 of Pod Caviar, and we are out.
You.